Hey, welcome to Life After Nursing School. I'm your host, Caroline Dana, aka Nurse Coach Caroline, and I'm here to help you, the new nurse, thrive in your career. As a former nurse recruiter, nurse manager, and now your personal new nurse career coach, I'm obsessed with making sure you don't just survive your first couple of years at the bedside. I want you to absolutely rock them. From the challenges to the triumphs, I'll be right here with you, giving you the real-world advice and support that you need to shine. Whether you're in nursing school getting ready for life after, or you're already out there in nurse life feeling overwhelmed or even questioning your confidence, I've got your back. I'll be sharing tips, tricks, resources, and strategies that are just for you. We'll dive into everything from landing that dream nursing job to slaying imposter syndrome, and most importantly, how to keep that spark alive and stay the vibrant and amazing nurse that you are. So if you're ready to tackle the things nursing school did not cover, like how to build a career, trust yourself, and keep your passion strong, then get comfortable because we are about to dive in and make nurse life the best life. Welcome back to Life After Nursing School podcast. On the day this episode drops, it will be Nurses Week 2025. I can't believe that I've had over a decade of Nurses Week celebrations. I actually remember my first Nurses Week as a new grad nurse, and I was working on a med-surg unit, and my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, he's an orthopedic PA, so he understands the whole Nurses Week thing. He sent me flowers to the unit from the hospital gift shop. I'm smiling, and you could probably hear it in my voice because it was a really sweet gesture. And honestly, he's tried to do a little something special for me every Nurses Week since. So reminiscing on my first Nurses Week as a new grad sort of inspired me for the conversation that we're about to have today. And I want to talk about that first year as a nurse and lean into the parts of it that many struggle with. I think through nursing school, we watch shows like Grey's Anatomy and the latest one called The Pit, and we sort of glorify working in healthcare. We come out of nursing school thinking that we're going to be saving lives and helping people and making a difference for others. And although we do those things, there are many parts of the job that you don't usually see on a TV show, or even parts of the job that simply need to be experienced to truly understand. I don't want to burst anyone's bubble or shut down your nursing dreams, but the reality of being a nurse day in and day out is just not as glorious as we may think. Don't get me wrong, I have loved being a nurse for most of my career, and you know that if you've listened to this show. Some of my most fulfilling chapters have been while working as a bedside ER nurse. But what HBO and the media do not tell you, and honestly, they really can't because it's almost something that you need to experience to really understand. But these shows, they cannot truly depict the struggles that come with being a nurse and learning how to be a nurse. If you've listened to an episode or two of this show, then you know I don't sugarcoat the reality of nursing. I want you to listen to the show and feel like you're somewhat prepared for the obstacles that lie ahead for you. Because I truly believe the more that we can prepare for the transition to nursing practice, the more smooth it will go. So I did some research for this episode and I took a deep dive into turnover in that first year as a nurse and the reasons behind it. When I say the word turnover, I am referring to a new grad nurse leaving their job. You may hear me say turnover rate, which refers to the rate at which employees leave a position. On the opposite side of turnover rates, we have the concept of retention rate. Retention rate typically indicates the rate at which an employer retains their employees. Magnet designated hospitals typically have a higher than average retention rate, as this is one of the criteria needed to be considered for a magnet recognition. I worked closely with these terms, turnover and retention, during my time as a nurse manager, but also during the time I spent as a hospital recruiter. I want to take a moment to emphasize just how critical it is for new grad nurses to find success in their first year at the bedside, because that first year lays the foundation for everything that follows in your nursing career. It is so important to build your nursing foundation with at least a year or two of consistent experience in a single environment. Developing clinical judgment, understanding policies and procedures, and learning to think critically all take time, and that growth doesn't happen overnight. When your early work experiences are fragmented or short lived, it becomes much harder to build on what you're learning. That kind of inconsistency not only slows your professional development, but it can also take a toll on your confidence. In fact, frequent job changes early on can amplify imposter syndrome and leave you questioning your place in the profession. And my friend, we are not going to question whether you're meant to be a nurse. You made it through nursing school, you have the heart to help others, and you absolutely have what it takes. This path is for you. But if you've been questioning everything lately, keep listening because you're not alone and it truly does get better, I promise. Okay, so let's chat about turnover. According to the Journal of Emergency Nursing, the turnover rate within the first year across the country is at an all-time high of 31%. And when you look specifically at nurses who have been on the job 1 year or less, the turnover is 27.7%. And by 2 years in, it is nearly 1 in 5 who leave. And emergency departments, it's even worse. ER nurse turnover rate has jumped from 20% in 2020 to a staggering 29.7 in 2021. And that's well above the national average of 27.1%. Okay. And I know that's ER specific, but I wanted to throw that in here. So if you feel like everyone is coming and going on your unit, it's because they are. This isn't just about burnout or bad scheduling. It's a staffing crisis. And I won't get into details, but I truly do not believe the issue is that we have a shortage of nurses, but actually we have a shortage of nurses who are willing to work in many of these high stress environments. The staffing crisis we are experiencing in the nursing workforce is especially tough on new grads because you, as the new grad, are entering a system that is already stretched thin with fewer mentors, more pressure, and less time to adjust. I have seen the effects within my own nurse career coaching business. I primarily work with nursing students in new grads and I help them land their first nursing job. But over time, as my business has grown, I am finding that I'm helping more and more new grads that are already working in their first job leave that first job to find a new one. But understanding these stats helps us talk about the real solutions and why support, mentorship, and honest conversations like this one matters more than ever. The transition from student to professional nurse is actually one of the most stressful periods in your entire career, and there's solid data behind that. So let's talk numbers for a second because the stress that you may be feeling as a new grad nurse right now, you're not alone. The research backs that up. A 2022 study published in Frontiers in Psychology by Lee and colleagues looked at how new nurses were coping in those first few weeks. And get this, 12.8% of new graduate nurses were already thinking about quitting within their first 8 weeks on the job. Okay, that's 8 weeks. That's 2 months into their first nursing job. And why? Well, the study found that for every unit increase in job stress, the intention to leave went up by 7%. Okay, so the more stressful the unit is, the higher the likelihood of new grads wanting to leave that position. And when sleep disturbances were added to the mix, which let's be honest, are super common with shift work, that jumped even more. Nurses with sleep issues had a 19% greater chance of wanting to resign early. And man, I can relate to this so much. I started on night shift, and 3 months in as a new grad, I was so sleep deprived that I went to my manager and I begged her to put me on another shift. I was desperate to get my sleep back. And if my manager hadn't moved me to full-time evening shift, yes, that was 4/8 one week and 5/8 the next, and I didn't have much of a social life. But if I didn't move to evening shift, I probably would have tried to find a new job. However, I am grateful to have been able to move shifts because that unit was an incredible place to learn as a new grad. And who knows where I would have ended up if I left. If you are struggling with adequate sleep due to working night shift, please check out episode 13 called Flip the Night Shift, 3 Common Mistakes Made While Living the Night Shift Life with Ashley Small. I learned so much in that episode from Ashley that I wish I knew as a new nurse working night shift. Okay, so back to the research. If you start in an ICU, it was found that new grads were 10 times more likely to report wanting to quit than peers on med surg units. Okay, let that sink in. 10 times more likely. So if you're sitting there thinking, I don't know if I can do this, or why do I feel like I made a mistake? You're not weak. You're experiencing what so many others have as well. This is part of the transition and it's hard for a reason. Okay. The system is demanding, the stakes are high, and the support can be inconsistent, but it doesn't mean that you don't belong. It means you're adjusting to a role that stretches every part of you, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Let's talk about something a lot of us feel but rarely say out loud, and that's the overwhelming urge to quit when you're starting something new. Maybe it's your first nursing job, maybe it's grad school, maybe you're just trying to build confidence in a new role, or you picked up a new hobby, and everything inside of you is screaming, this was a mistake. Why is that? It's because trying something new shakes up your entire sense of stability. Your brain thrives on predictability. So when you enter a brand new environment, like your first day on the floor as a nurse, it triggers discomfort. Not because you're failing, but because your brain doesn't quite know what to expect. Then comes imposter syndrome, and you feel like everyone else around you has it all together, like you're the only one faking it until you make it. And even the making it part feels like a long shot. You look around and you think, I am not cut out for this. And on top of that, you're mentally maxed out. Every new thing requires emotional energy, cognitive processing, and the humility to not know what you're doing. That's exhausting. And let's be honest, there aren't always a ton of wins in those first few weeks to make you feel like the hard work is worth it yet. So, what happens? Quitting starts to look like relief. Okay. It looks like the way out. And honestly, many people end up quitting. But here's what I want you to know: the urge to quit doesn't mean you're not capable, it means you're human. It means you're doing something brave. This chapter, trying new things, being the beginner, and showing up shaky, is one of the hardest chapters in your professional life. But it's also where you build the kind of grit and empathy that sets the foundation for your entire career. So if you're in that messy, uncomfortable phase right now, keep going. This is what growth feels like. It's not glamorous, it's not perfect, but it is powerful. I want you to know about a study published in Healthcare Journal titled The Experiences of Newly Graduated Nurses During Their First Year of Practice. This study found that new nurses experienced peaks in stress at the 4 and 8 month marks in their first year, often due to time management and workload challenges. By the 12-month mark, stress levels typically decreased as nurses adjusted to their roles. So, based on this study, stress increases for new grads around the 4 month mark, which is around the time most new grads come off of orientation. Okay. And stress seems to stay relatively high until the 8 month mark. And then it starts to go on a decline, especially after the 1 year mark. Okay. So increased stress is a normal or quote unquote normal experience amongst new grad nurses during that first year. If you are experiencing this, again, you are not alone. Okay, let's get real about job satisfaction in your first year as a nurse. Because if you're feeling overwhelmed or questioning your choices, you're in the majority, not the minority. A 2023 survey by Park and O looked at 428 new graduate nurses, and the results were telling. On a scale of 1 to 5, average job satisfaction was just 5.5. And when it came to how people felt about their workplace specifically, which they called institutional satisfaction, that score dropped to 5.1. Here's where it hits even harder though. 42.5% of those new graduate nurses, and remember they did a study of over 400 new grads, said they had considered leaving the profession entirely within their first year. And over half, 50.9% to be exact, thought about leaving their current job. Okay, so let that sink in. If you're lying awake at night wondering if you've made the wrong decision, you're not broken. Again, you're just in the messy middle of a really hard transition. Almost half of those surveyed also said they had trouble adjusting to the clinical life. They talked about heavy patient loads, miscommunication with colleagues, and not really knowing how things worked at their hospital, like policies, chain of command, or even where to find help. That kind of disorientation is exhausting. And it's a big reason why many new grads feel isolated or burnt out before they even get to find their rhythm. But here's the thing, this stage is temporary. And I know I've already said that in this episode, but I want to make sure you hear it. The struggle doesn't mean you're failing, it means you're learning in real time, under pressure, and in a system that's still learning how to support new grads. So if no one's said it yet, you're doing better than you think, and you're not alone in this. My advice for you, if you are experiencing a less than ideal first year as a nurse, is to try to stick it out. Having been in nursing management and worked in recruitment, I know firsthand that once you as a new grad have 1 year of solid, uninterrupted nursing experience on your resume, it is much easier to gain traction in the job market when applying for your next career opportunity. However, I find all too often that new grads are leaving their first position after a first few months and then struggle to find their next job. The reason behind this is that most nursing positions that are posted online taking applicants requires 1 year or more of nursing experience. So if you only have 3 or 4 months of new grad experience, you are not even eligible to apply for these posted positions. Most residency programs will consider a new grad with a short-lived employment experience, but often they can be viewed as having tried and failed as a bedside nurse. And competing with many fresh new grad nurses can be really challenging and can leave the new grad with experience without job opportunities. I've worked with many new grad nurses who've faced situations like this. One client in particular comes to mind, an incredible nurse who endured a truly difficult orientation. Her orientation was cut short. She never had a consistent preceptor, and by the time they expected her to work independently at the bedside, she simply wasn't ready, and understandably so. She had about 6 weeks of orientation with multiple preceptors on a busy med-surg unit, and the lack of consistency left her feeling overwhelmed and unsupported. She eventually confided in me that she felt pressured to resign, so she did. Afterward, she struggled to gain job traction. She tried working in a nursing home, but resigned there because she feared for her license in that environment. She now works in the clinic, which is not her ideal setting, but one where she's building confidence and growing her skills. She'll likely need to spend about a year in this role before becoming competitive for hospital-based positions. And unfortunately, she'll probably no longer qualify for most residency programs. It hasn't been an easy road for her, but I truly admire her resilience and commitment to her career. And sadly, her story isn't unique. I've seen far too many new grads experience similar challenges. So, how do you survive that first nursing job when you are feeling overwhelmed, stressed, and confused about your life choices? As I previously mentioned, in that 2023 survey by Park and O, new graduates identified struggling to adjust to clinical life. They identified struggling with the workload, communicating effectively with colleagues, and not knowing how to find or utilize their workplace policies and resources. If this is you, lean into your resources. If you are a part of a residency program, identify what it is that you are struggling with and find a way to learn more about it. Bring topics, questions, and concerns to your residency program director or preceptor. You need to advocate for your needs and identify what it is you are struggling with the most. At the end of the day, your employer does not want to lose you. They've invested money and time into hiring and orienting you. However, in this staffing crisis climate, you need to identify your blind spots, your weaknesses, and your anxieties and advocate for ways to help you address them and alleviate that bedside stress. I want to empower new grad nurses to take control of their transition to practice. Identifying areas of improvement or stress and working on them can actually help you gain confidence, reduce your stress, and improve your job satisfaction. For example, if time management is something that you struggle with or find stressful, be proactive. Bring it up with your preceptor, ask questions, try different strategies, and learn from their experience. Use this time during orientation and your transition phase to practice skills like clustering care and anticipating patient needs. The more you can improve now, the more confident and prepared you'll be once you're on your own. Okay, before we wrap up this episode, I want to take a moment to share something really close to my heart. That is my online community called the New Nurse Society. I want to mention it here because it may be something that helps you during your first year or two in practice. When I first created this online community, the goal was simple: help nursing students and new grad nurses land their first job. But after months of hosting group career coaching calls, one thing became crystal clear. The hard work doesn't stop once you get hired. In fact, that's where it really begins. As we've talked throughout this episode, your first year as a nurse is both foundational and incredibly challenging. That's why the New Nurse Society has evolved into so much more than just a job search resource. It's become a support hub for what comes after, because that's where so many nurses need help the most. Each month, we host live workshops that go beyond resumes and interviews. Last month, we covered night shift survival tips. Before that, we tackled how to give a strong and effective RN handoff. These sessions are practical, interactive, and honestly really fun. We start with a quick, focused presentation and then open things up for Q&A. We also provide downloadable tools, templates, and resources to help you actually apply what you've learned. And now I'm so excited to share that I've brought into the New Nurse Society my friend Julia to offer even more support. She's currently training as a nurse life coach, and every month she leads what we're calling connection calls. These are relaxed, informal sessions where members can show up just as they are to vent, ask questions, debrief after a tough shift, or talk about whatever's on their mind. Our first call was a total success. Most of the nurses who joined were new grads, and they were incredibly open about their on-the-job struggles. It reminded me just how important it is to have a space where you can say, "This is hard," and hear back, "You're not alone." If you've ever felt like you're drowning in doubt or questioning whether you're even meant to be a nurse, this community is for you. The New Nurse Society is here to support you through it all. Job applications, mastering new skills like report giving, figuring out how to survive third shift, and even navigating the emotional roller coaster of your first year. I built this community because I believe no new nurse should have to go through this season alone, and I'm here for the good, the hard, and everything in between. I will post a link to the community in the show notes if you want to check out this resource. Okay, what an episode. If you're still listening, I hope you're walking away with one big takeaway. You are not alone. The stress, the doubts, the overwhelm, those aren't signs that you're failing. They're signs that you're growing through one of the most demanding transitions of your career. Nursing is hard, but so are you. And you don't have to do this alone, whether it's through your preceptor, your residency program, or communities like the New Nurse Society. Lean into support. Ask the questions, speak up about what's not working. This is your career, and you have more power than you think to shape how it unfolds. If this episode resonated with you, I would be so grateful if you shared it with a friend or fellow nurse who might need to hear it too. And if you have a moment, please leave a rating or review. It's a small act that helps this show reach more nurses navigating this messy, beautiful beginning. You've got this, and I'll be right here cheering you on every step of the way. And as always, I have one hand for me and the other for you. Signing off. Well, that's it for today's episode of Life After Nursing School. I hope you feel more confident and ready to tackle the challenges that come with starting your nursing career. Remember, the first year or two might not be easy, but with the right mindset, you can overcome anything. If you found value in today's episode, I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a future episode. Also, please consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform. It helps so much in reaching other new nurses like you. Thanks for listening, and remember, you've got this. Take care and see you next time.